and my memory is not as active as it used to be. When I was younger, I could remember anything, whether it had happened or not. But my faculties are decaying now, and soon I shall be so that I cannot remember any but the things that never happened. I was born on the 30th of November, 1835, in the almost invisible village of Florida, Monroe County, Missouri. I increased the population by 1%. It is more than many of the best men in history could have done for a town. After we removed to the small town of Hannibal, Missouri, when I was a small boy, everybody was poor, but didn't know it. My father was John Marshall Clemens of Virginia. My mother, Jane Lambton of Kentucky. My father died when I was 11. When my mother died in October 1890, she was well along in her 88th year. She had a heart so large that everybody's grief and everybody's joys found welcome in it, and hospitable accommodation. All the race of dumb animals had a friend in her. By some subtle sign, the homeless, hunted, bedraggled, and disreputable cat recognized her at a glance as the born refuge and champion of his sort, and followed her home. We had 19 cats at one time. My mother had a good deal of trouble with me, but I think she enjoyed it. She had none at all with my brother Henry, who was 2 years younger than I. And I think that the unbroken monotony of his goodness and truthfulness and obedience would have been a burden to her, but for the relief and variety which I furnished in the other direction. I was a tonic. It was Henry's duty to report me when I needed reporting, and neglected to do it myself. And he was very faithful in discharging that duty. If you've read Tom Sawyer, he is Sid. I was educated not only in the common school at Hannibal, but also in my brother Orion's newspaper office, where I served in all capacities, including staff work. When I was about 22 years old, I left for New Orleans in the steamer Paul Jones. Little by little, I got acquainted with Horace Bixby, one of the boat's pilots, and pretty soon I was doing a lot of steering for him in his daylight watches. When I got to New Orleans, I had no friends and no money to speak of. I went to Horace Bixby and asked him to make a pilot out of me. He said he would do it. So I steered for him up to St. Louis, and within 18 months I was a competent pilot. Piloting on the Mississippi River was not work to me. It was delightful play, vigorous play, adventurous play, and I loved it. I served that office until the Mississippi River traffic was brought to a standstill by the breaking out of the Civil War. In June 1861, I joined the Confederates in Rawls County, Missouri, as a second lieutenant under General Tom Harris, and came near having the distinction of being captured by Colonel Ulysses S. Grant. I resigned after 2 weeks' service in the field, explaining that I was incapacitated by fatigue through persistent retreating. When my brother, Orion, became Secretary of the new Territory of Nevada, I traveled west with him by stagecoach. At first, I roamed about the country seeking silver, but at the end of '62 or the beginning of '63, I came up to begin a journalistic life on the Virginia City Enterprise. To save time, I began signing my letters to the newspaper using the Mississippi River leadsman's call, Mark Twain, which means 2 fathoms, or 12 feet. Later, in San Francisco, after 2 years of salaried indulgence, I retired from my position on the San Francisco Morning Call by solicitation. Solicitation of the proprietor, that is. Well, the vagabond instinct was strong upon me. Fortune favored, and I got a new berth, and a delightful one. It was to go down to the Sandwich or Hawaiian Islands and write some letters for the Sacramento Union. I returned to California to find myself the best-known honest man on the Pacific Coast. I broke out as a lecturer in October 1866, when I announced my first lecture on the Sandwich Islands. I closed the advertisement with the remark, "The trouble begins at 8." A true prophecy, for when I found myself in front of the only audience I had ever faced, the fright which pervaded me from head to toe was paralyzing. It lasted 2 minutes and was as bitter as death. But it made me immune from timidity before audiences for all time. From that day to this, I have always been able to gain my living without doing any work. For the writing of books and magazine matter was always play, not work. I enjoyed it. Well, it was merely billiards to me. After writing for 15 years, it struck me that I had no talent for writing. I couldn't give it up. By that time, I was already famous. In the beginning of February 1870, I was married to Miss Olivia L. Langdon. Under her grave and gentle exterior burned inextinguishable fires of sympathy, energy, devotion, enthusiasm, and absolutely limitless affection. She was always cheerful and able to communicate her cheerfulness to others. She was able to reason me out of my despair and find a bright side to the clouds and make me see it. Our first daughter, Susie, was born in 1872. Our next child, Clara, was born in 1874. Jean, our last, in 1880. The children always helped their mother edit my books in manuscript. She would sit on the porch and read aloud with her pencils in her hand, and the children would keep an alert and suspicious eye, for the belief was well grounded in them that whenever she came across a particularly satisfactory passage, she would strike it out. I have made 34 long journeys in my life, and 32 were made under the spur of absolute compulsion. I had to gather material for books or sketches. I had to stump around lecturing to make money, or I had to go abroad for the health or the education of my family. Nothing so liberalizes a man and expands the kindly instincts that nature put in him as travel and contact with many kinds of people. I have traveled more than anyone else, and I have noticed that even the angels speak English with an accent. A university degree is a prize I would travel far to get at any time. When Yale made me a Master of Arts, I was pleased beyond measure, because I didn't know anything about art. I had another convulsion of pleasure when Yale made me a Doctor of Literature, because I was not competent to doctor anybody's literature but my own. I rejoiced again when Missouri University made me a Doctor of Laws, I not knowing anything about laws, except how to evade them and not get caught. And now Oxford has made me a Doctor of Letters. All clear profit, because what I don't know about letters would make me a millionaire if I could turn it into cash. I am 70 now, and would nestle in the chimney corner and smoke my pipe, and read my book and take my rest. I wish you well in all affection, and that when you, in your turn, should arrive at Pier number 70, you may step aboard your waiting ship with a reconciled spirit, and lay your course toward the sinking sun with a contented heart. For the heart is the real fountain of youth. While that remains young, time must stand still.